Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, WeissAdvice.com and Weiss Advice here on YouTube. I want to kick this video off with a quick comparison here. This is the same plugin with the same settings across every track. You're going to hear it bypassed, then unbypassed, so you can hear the difference. All right, let's go. Okay, so this is a sponsored video from MixWave. It's all about the Hazelrigg Industries VLC, which is essentially a saturation plugin, but it is in many ways a lot more than that. Basically, once every generation of plugins, there comes along this certain little piece of software that's just a magic better button. And that, you know, for some people that might be like the FL Sound Goodizer. For a while it was Sausage Fattener. Back in like 2014, 2015, we used to joke amongst audio engineers, oh, Decapitator everything, where we were just putting Sound Toys Decapitator on everything because it was making everything sound better. And here, I believe the Hazelrigg Industries is the most modern adaptation of that idea. It is a better button. It revolves around the idea of saturation. Saturation in audio works very similarly to saturation in photography. Technically, it is a distortion, but it does not function like a distortion. So here's me without saturation. And now, here's me with a bunch of added saturation. It makes everything clearer, and in a lot of ways it makes things look cleaner, even though it is actually adding distortion, which is a little counterintuitive, but I'm going to play this again. I'm going to bring it in and out of bypass a little bit faster, and you'll notice that when I add the saturation, when I unbypass the plugin, it actually makes everything feel like it's clearer. Almost more separated, but at the same time more glued, which is a little counterintuitive, but listen again. So even though everything is coming in at the same level, we're getting more apparent width, we're getting more apparent height, we're getting more apparent definition. Why? Because we're getting harmonics that are being generated on every source that help the ear identify that source. Very much like photosaturation, right? It helps us identify the colors. Same thing here. This is the reason why so many of us like summing mixers, why so many of us like mixing on consoles. But the issue is, saturation is extremely difficult to model correctly in the digital world. It is very complicated because it is based on nonlinearities. Nonlinearities are things that function differently based on the frequency coming in, the amplitude coming in, how quickly the amplitude is changing versus holding on. So like a loud duration sound might saturate differently than a short duration sound. All sorts of interesting things start to happen in the electric world that don't really happen in the data world. This is a fantastic modeling of saturation. I can do all sorts of stuff. The setting I have right now is a very clean setting. I have the oversampling on. I don't know how much of a difference that really makes. To me, it doesn't sound too different, but then I have a little bit of gain pushed in for all these sources because I tend to have all of my tracks fairly low when I start out. And then I have it in line mode, which is going to be the most transparent of the saturations. And in my mind, this is almost like stemming out to a console or mixing through a summing mixer. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting, where there's a certain magic there, but it's not overwhelming or overbearing. What I know is that once I've got this on, mixing into it is going to be much easier than trying to get everything to have that same sense of magic without it. Now, I want to show you a quick little tip that is an aside that is going to be helpful here, but this is specifically for the Pro Tools users. Right now, I have all of these MixWaves here on the same insert. It's on insert F. If I go into my group settings, the way that I have this set up for my group is I do not have follow globals checked. I have it unchecked. And I went to attributes and I just checked up. I wasn't sure where I was going to put it on the inserts, but for the inserts, I've checked off E, F, and G, both the controls and bypass. This means that as long as it's the exact same plugin in the exact same place, I can control every plugin from one plugin. So in other words, let's say I want to push into this a little bit harder, right? I can go to my gain here on one of them, and you'll notice that it's changing on both. So this is really great for showing kind of almost doing like a console mix, but in the box. So if I want to get a little bit more juice out of this, I can start turning this up. So now I'm pushing into this a little bit harder. I'm getting a little bit more distortion. Like you can start to hear some like very, very low level clipping kind of happening. Not clipping in the sense of like square wave clipping, but like what happens when you start getting clipping from like components that are in series. And the idea here is basically I can just set everything to where it generally sounds good using the group controlling, and then I can go into my individual tracks by ungrouping, and then I can start to really get what I'm looking for, and I can still get most of what I'm looking for here on the individual channels. So for example, I think the snare should be brighter. Snare sounds bright enough on its own, so for the selection of snare by itself, it sounds fine, but for like the context of the record, the whole thing could be a little bit brighter. So I've got a little EQ section here, and I have to say this. Usually when there's a plugin that centers around a very specific idea like saturation, the add-on things like EQs usually don't sound very good. This is exactly the opposite. Frankly, I would consider using this just for the EQs. The EQs sound fantastic. So I'm going to turn off the high boost here, or I'm going to turn on the high boost here. I'm going to keep it in the lower corner. When it says low, it doesn't mean low like as in low frequency. It means the lower of two different selected corners. I don't know what this corner is. I'm going to turn it up and take a guess. I mean, I'm hearing this pretty high up, so my guess is this is probably around 8K, and if I flip this, this is probably going to turn into like 10 or 12K. Yeah, that got a lot brighter, so I'm guessing this is around 10 or 12K, something like that. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how the snare ends up feeling. I'm in solo mode, so my guess is I want to err a little bit on the brighter side. And let's jump over here. Let's add a little bit of tops over to these shakers, or maybe just turn the shaker up. And we got a tambourine. Yep, good stuff. No. No. What else? Tambos. Oh yeah, let's pump the treble on that. And then on individual tracks, I can also start to have fun with some of the saturations. If I turn it to mic or instrument, it's going to get a little grislier than where it's at. Instrument is going to be a little bit smoother and fatter sounding. Mic is going to be a little bit more abrasive, and it's basically just comes down to the way that they're gain staged. The mic saturation is based on if it was expecting to see a mic level signal, which is going to be a lot lower than, say, a line level signal or an instrument level signal. Instrument and line are going to be pretty similar. It's just going to see a different impedance, so it's mimicking that change. But, we can talk about it in theory. Let's just hear it in practice. All right, so that's starting to sound a little broken up. Let's try instrument. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Let's keep going with this. Let's jump over to the kick drum. Where is our kick drum? Yeah, let's put a little bit extra sub in this. So I'm going to go to the low frequency here of the kick. Nice. Kind of like that actually on instrument. It gives it this sort of like chewy quality. I really like that instrument setting actually. It's really, really good if you have like a digital soft synth. Let's not do that one. Let's do this one. Yeah, it just adds like a really beautiful saturation that makes soft synths, which normally sound really sterile and thin, even if they're good. Like, I think this is a pretty good sounding synth, but like, it just doesn't have that like low mid energy, that kind of like hair that draws the ear to it. This is doing that in a really, really, really good way. Really nice and full and heavy, and I just love that. I feel like it feels like a bold step, but I think the next couple of mixes that I do, I'm just going to try this process where I'm slapping the VLC across every track right to start, and then setting everything as kind of like a clean console, and then mixing into that. And I think it's going to produce some really, really good results, because to me, this sounds almost finished. Like, it's starting to feel a little woolly in the low mids, but that's a very, very simple matter of just finding whatever is bulking up the low mids and just kind of cleaning it out a little. Actually, I kind of like the heavy low mids. I'm not even sure I need to clean it out. Like, yeah, it's a lot of low mid, but it's a good sounding low mid. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there. I believe the plugin is being released today, so if you're interested in it, should be already out. If you're interested in learning more about saturation, check out Mixing with Saturation. It is one of the courses that I sell on my shop. You also get free access to it as a Weiss Advice member. And it goes into some very in-depth technical ideas about saturation, as well as a whole bunch of different creative uses and some presets and trackouts and great things like that. Anyway, if you dig this video, hit that like button. If you want to catch more videos like this, hit subscribe with the bell notification so you get notified. And lastly, you know what we say here at Weiss Advice. We are musicians, sound is our instrument, and I will catch you next time.